Hey, have you heard about Podcast On? This is a global podcast charity event where hosts dedicate one episode to a nonprofit they care about and release it together the same week. No fundraising, no fees, just powerful storytelling for good. Podcast On 2026 runs March 14th to March 20th. Join thousands of podcasters worldwide and use your voice for impact. It's free, it's simple, and it starts at podcasthon.org.
The Marketing Podcast Network is a proud partner of Podcast On.
You enjoy podcasts. We know because you're listening to one. Hi, I'm Jason Falls, the executive producer of the Marketing Podcast Network. We love podcasts too, so much so that in addition to providing you with a great episode you're listening to, we also help businesses, brands, and even individuals produce their podcasts. MPN Studios offers podcast consulting and production services to help you get you or your business its very own podcast. We've helped dozens of smart people, advertising agencies, and brands develop podcasts. All you do is record your content or interview. We take that and deliver a professionally produced audio or video episode, complete with show notes, transcriptions, and even promotional clips to use on social media. And our monthly subscription prices are hard to beat. If you or your company are jonesing to have your own podcast to establish thought leadership, drive business leads, or just have fun talking about your business or topic of choice, we'd love to help. Learn more at marketingpodcasts.net/studio. That's marketingpodcasts.net/studio.
Welcome to Your Radiant Spirit, a space for the conversations and colors that help you see yourself more clearly. I'm Heather Eck, an intuitive artist and guide, and I believe your soul speaks in the ways the mind can't always put into words, through color, energy, and the stories your body holds. This show is where we explore those messages. Through personal stories, deep conversations, and creative insight, we'll uncover what's been hidden, release what no longer serves, and begin to imagine what's possible when you live in full alignment with who you're meant to be. What you hear here is more than inspiration, it's an opening, a chance to feel the shift that could change everything. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let's step into today's conversation. I'm so excited to share this episode with you guys. There's a little bit of a backstory I want to fill you in on. I am a big fan of Amy's, and she is a Hay House author and an energy healer. And a few years ago, she reached out to me and bought a painting. And I was so excited. So I've been following her for a while. I was able to take one of her workshops. It completely opened up my heart. There were so many things that came out of it. After that workshop ended, I went and finished a painting and I sent it to her. I tagged her on Instagram because I wanted her to see how impactful that workshop was on me and the beautiful painting that came out of it. And then I actually decided, let me ask if she would be willing to be a guest on my show. And you guys, you miss 100% of the shots you don't make. I shot my shot, whatever you want to say. And she said yes. And so today's episode is my opportunity to interview Amy B Scher and to hear all about her story and how she got into energy healing and how she helps people improve their lives and actually heal. This is a fantastic episode. I cannot wait for you to hear it. Let's dive right in. Amy, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so happy to get to interview you and to get to connect with you live because I've been following you for a long time, and it's kind of like a little dream come true for me to chat with you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I I guess like a little context for how you even sort of came into my life. It was a few years ago. I was working in corporate still. I was still doing human resources before I left and started to pursue art making. But somehow I stumbled upon your book, How to Heal Yourself When No One Else Can, and I would listen to it on my drive into work every day.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And it was one of those things where, I would sort of drive and tap and drive and like do different
Oh,
modalities because I didn't make the time for myself in the morning to sort of sit and process. And so I would be driving, listening to you and like ferociously tapping my forehead as I was driving to work.
I love it. You got to do it when you can, right?
That's right. That's right. But you have such a powerful story. You went from chronic illness to thinking like nothing is working for me, and then eventually being able to heal yourself. So, can you walk us through some of what those experiences were like for you, especially in the moments when you felt like nothing's working. And then when you discovered that this emotional, energetic work for you was sort of like a non-negotiable, you have to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So I had chronic Lyme disease along with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, a whole bunch of different diagnoses, which I know is common for a lot of people. And really nothing was working. I had gone for an experimental stem cell transplant in another country, which helped me improve huge amounts. But then I relapsed. And so,
Mm.
this was a 10-year journey for me where I
Mm.
was really sick, trying everything, running around, different doctors, different treatments, kind of lost hope, lost time, all the things that probably many people recognize. And eventually, I really realized that there had to be something I was missing, and it couldn't have any longer been outside of me because I had tried everything outside of me. I had gone to the best doctors, I had done the best treatments, I had gone all the way around the world to India for this experimental, stem cell transplant. I had like done all of these things. And so by the process of elimination, I was like, and also being totally out of money at that point was like, I'm out
Mhm.
of money, I'm out of energy. Like, what could this be? And I started, doing some research and ran across or came across Louise Hay's work,
Mhm.
which is basically your I can't of course I can't remember the name of her book, but it was like so seared in my head for so long. But you can heal your life. And
Mhm.
and and I started kind of really considering how the mind body connection works. And this wasn't something I had never thought of because my dad was a therapist, because I read a lot of spirituality books when I was younger. It wasn't something I'd ever thought of, but it was something that I didn't think applied to me, which is really
Mm.
interesting to me now. It was kind of like, oh, but I have these big medical things. These are so beyond what these books are about, or so beyond what, like, I'm beyond help in this area. It's like this isn't my problem, sort of thing. And when I sort of had that realization that nothing else could really be my problem because I had been diagnosed with all these things, and I had done all the remedies for said things and I still wasn't better, I got to the point of like, there has to be something else. And it sort of was an epiphany for me that if you're treating the body and the body is not getting better, then maybe the body isn't completely what the issue is, what the problem is, what the challenge is, right? And so
Yeah.
that's when I really sort of decided to dive into emotional work, energy work, like all the things that I had sort of like known about, but didn't really consider. Again, my dad was a therapist, so I had been to many therapists in my life just for various reasons over the years. It wasn't like I was somebody who was totally detached emotionally or unaware emotionally. But I discovered that there is a big difference between going to therapy and also really doing the work to change the patterns that aren't working for you. And it's so interesting for me as a practitioner now because, most people who come to me have been going to therapy for 20 years. And therapy is so great for awareness, for behavioral issues. Like therapy is so helpful for so many things, but if all you do every week is go to therapy and keep talking about things, therapy alone doesn't change you. Therapy alone isn't enough. Therapy alone doesn't reprogram your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Like therapy is sort of, one of the tools, but I realized that I was like doing this thing where I was like taking all my supplements. I did all my medical treatments. I went to therapy. And then I was like, okay, I checked all those things off the list. Why am I not better? But I wasn't actually making the big life changes and the internal changes that I needed to make in order for my body to respond the way I wanted my body to respond. And so that was like sort of a turning point for me. And I was at a low point because I had done all these things and I had gotten somewhat better, and then I was sliding backwards. And it was really scary to feel like I've done everything in the world and nothing has worked. And then this sort of opened up a brand new path for me where it was like, okay, maybe there's more I haven't done.
Hmm. My gosh, there's so much in there I want to ask you about. I want to go back to like finding the Louise Hay work and really digging into that and going, wait a minute, there's something more here for me. You had to, I'm sure, kind of, I like how you said, I didn't know that some of those things applied to me, because I think that I sort of think of myself in this way too. Maybe this probably doesn't apply to you, because I think you are so focused on actually doing the work. But for me, I sort of feel like the cobbler's children have no shoes sometimes, and I think I'm
Right.
putting out so much effort to help other people, but I'm not really helping myself. But you have made a full commitment to actually showing up and doing the work. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I had to. That was the other thing is like at the end of the day, no one's going to make you better. No one even cares if you get better. And that sounds really harsh because, of course, like our spouses and our parents, but like no one cares more than you should care. Like no
mm,
one's ever going to save you. At the end of the day, if you didn't do your energy work, if you didn't change, if you didn't keep the promises to yourself about eating better or going for a walk, if you don't do it for yourself, no one cares. At the end of the day,
hmm
no one comes and says, you didn't do this, let me go with you, let me do this for you, let me, nobody cares. And so I think, and I did have that personality. I'm very much a caretaker. I'm a Virgo. I mean, I will put everyone before myself. And then I think at some point I was like, well, that's just not going to work. Like that is no longer, that is at a choice at this point. And if I choose to do all of these other things and then say, oh, poor me, I don't have time or energy for me, then that is a choice to not get well. And so I think, so much about healing and the I hate to say like the industry of healing, but it definitely is an industry, is about like being so gentle with yourself and compassion. But I actually feel the opposite. You do want to love yourself. You do want to be gentle with yourself. You do want to have compassion, but you have to hold your feet to the fire or you're not going to get better because nobody
mm,
cares and no one's going to do it for you. And so if you're gonna, buy the online course, if you're gonna buy the books and you're not, I mean, I have so many people who come to me through years and years and I say, they say, I read your book and I said, and it didn't help. I read your book and it didn't help. Well, did you do anything from it? No. Well, then it's not going to help. It's not the kind of book that you can read and get cured from. And so I think it's like sometimes I feel like I'm sounding like a tough love voice in this space, but also that's what helped me heal. That is what helped me
hmm
heal was like, okay, I've been checking all the things off the list. I've been so proud of myself. Great job. You did them and they're still not working. And it becomes a little bit of a situation where, you're making excuses and you're not really doing the work
Yeah.
and you have to have that moment with yourself where it's like, am I going to do this or not? And if I'm not, and that's a choice, that's fine. Maybe I don't want to get well bad enough. Maybe I don't want to put in the work it takes. Maybe I don't want to look at the things I need to look at. But it's not fair to you or anyone around you to say you're doing the work and not really be doing it.
And then not actually doing it. Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. I think it's really great actually that you bring that up, because I do think that we look at certain people in healing spaces and we think, "Oh, they're going to be the golden ticket. This is going to work for me. I just have to listen to what they say." But I think at the heart of what you're really saying is that we are the ones who are responsible. We have to hold ourselves accountable, and no one's going to show up and magically heal you except for God, right? Like that divine healer. But outside of that, you really do have to be the person who is taking ownership of the choices that you made that got you to where you are, and then the choices that you make to move you from that space.
Absolutely. And I think even with the divine, with the universe, with God, whatever you resonate with, you still have to match that.
Right.
You can't be laying in your bed doing absolutely nothing, not care, not trying to still step toward that healing. Like I think there's a matching that happens there, and that energy, that will to survive, that willingness to be open, that willingness to heal, to do the work is matched by the universe, or however you want to say it. And so
hmm
even when we talk about that sort of divine intervention, you have to be ready for it. You have to be there for it.
I agree with that. You have to be willing to show up for it, because there's only so far that energy will meet you, but then you have to show the willingness to be able to step in and do the work alongside it too.
Exactly, exactly.
I want to go back to, you said when you were younger, reading spiritual books and things like that. What were you like as a kid? Were you curious about spirituality? Was that something that was part of your awareness?
Yeah, I was such a hippie kid. I mean, my dad went to Woodstock. My mom was a hippie. Like I was such a hippie kid. One of my first like spiritual my very first spiritual book was Ram Dass, Be Here Now, and I still have the copy. I got it at a used bookstore in Ojai, California, and just like devoured it and then read from there. I was really, really into Buddhism, which is so interesting. I mean, I still love
Interesting.
Buddhism, but like, yeah, I was really into Buddhism and all the Ram Dass teachings, which I don't think I fully understood, and sometimes I still don't fully understand, but, like, I always was drawn to spirituality. I was always drawn to just interest about, like, different philosophies, different ways of living, and until I had health problems, I wasn't at all interested in health or healing or well-being. I had no interest in that, it was more spirituality. Um, I think that so much of it I resonated with, but I was young. I was like, it was a young teenage, it was a teenager where you're trying to control everything and you have worries about what people think about you and you have
Mm-hmm.
fears. I mean, all the things, right? When we're younger. And so I don't think I ever like applied it again, it's like the application is what counts. I don't know if I ever applied it in the ways that maybe I could have beyond just reading it, but I think it, like, came back to me when I needed it. Like, so much of
Mm-hmm.
the, like, be here now, be in the present moment, surrender, so much of that came in handy in my healing journey when I realized there's such an ebb and flow of, like, having to do the work, but then also following the path, right? Like, also surrendering to, like, this is where I am right now, and I can't bully my way through illness. I have to, like, take the steps as they appear on the path, as I know what to do, but also the path is unfolding in its own way. And I think so like all of that came back to me when I got older. And I had a deep interest in psychology probably because my dad was a psychologist, but so much of that was interesting to me like how the mind works. And in those days like when I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease was 2007, but I had been sick since 2000 since the year 2000. And at that time, there really wasn't a whole lot about the mind body connection. Like no one was talking about it. Now, if you're diagnosed with Lyme disease, like you'll hear about it all over, right?
Mm-hmm.
But or chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia. I mean, that's why people come to me to do my work. But in those days, there really wasn't that correlation between one, stress and the physical body, and two, there wasn't the correlation between like actually our mindset and how and our beliefs and our subconscious programming have something to do with our biological processing our physical body. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so different now for so much better. Like I'm invited to teach at major hospitals now. That would have never ever happened years ago. And
Yeah.
so much has changed, so much around the awareness has changed. And I think the invitation is fully there, but a lot of people are still resistant.
Hey marketers, Deborah Eckerlin here.
And I'm Keith Smith, and we host the MPN Meta Marketing Show, which is not just another marketing podcast, but the marketing podcast about all the other marketing podcasts.
Podcasts are booming, right? We love them, and people actually listen. They don't scroll, they don't swipe. Well, except maybe during the ad breaks.
But here's the secret. With the Marketing Podcast Network, your ads don't make people hit skip. We put your brand on shows that people actually want to hear.
That's right. We match your message with podcasts that make marketing nerds like us perk up and take notes, or at least nod knowingly, pretending they understand.
And don't worry, because we'll deliver your ad naturally. People might even think that we love your brand personally, which of course we totally do, unless it's a veggie smoothie, then maybe not.
If you want your brand heard without making listeners roll their eyes,
Head to marketingpodcasts.net and catch marketing fans at work, rest, and play. Seriously, your audience is already listening. Make sure they hear your brand and not our awkward jokes.
join the conversation because good ads shouldn't just be tolerated, they should be enjoyed.
Yes!
Hey, have you heard about Podcast On? This is a global podcast charity event where hosts dedicate one episode to a nonprofit they care about and release it together the same week. No fundraising, no fees, just powerful storytelling for good. Podcast On 2026 runs March 14th to March 20th. Join thousands of podcasters worldwide and use your voice for impact. It's free, it's simple, and it starts at podcaston.org.
The Marketing Podcast Network is a proud partner of Podcast On.
I think it's amazing that you've been invited to hospitals. Can you say more about that? Because I think a lot of times, like we've talked about, you have an illness or something that pops up and you're like, I'm trying to treat the body. I'm trying to treat the body. My spiritual teacher has taught me when you fix the spirit, you fix the body, because there's almost always something underneath that that's caused it. The body alone isn't what created it. So can you unpack sort of what that means for you and how you're teaching that and offering that to people now in those healing spaces that are more traditional than the work that you or I do?
Yeah, so the work that I do at hospitals is based on the fact that we know that science shows that stress on your body causes a physical reaction, causes a
Mhm.
biological reaction. Your cortisol levels change, your blood pressure goes up, your digestion slows down, your like all of these things happen, right? That's science. It's indisputable at this point.
Mhm.
Even I think the CDC says over 90% of illnesses are caused by stress.
Gosh.
So it's widely recognized. So when I go to teaching hospitals, I definitely talk less about the spirit and more about stress. Now, what I do talk about is that I don't believe that the stress that causes illness is the stress of day to day stuff that overwhelms us. That's superficial stress.
Okay.
What I believe causes illness or contributes to illness is the stress that comes from not living as we are meant to be living. That means contracting who we are, living in fear, dimming our light, people pleasing, not taking care of
Mhm.
ourselves. So there are deeper core spiritual, or you could call them emotional issues that that I believe are the stresses that have that biological effect. And we know that trauma is one of them. Trauma is widely talked about these days, something I'm not a massive fan about because I now feel like everybody thinks that everything traumatizes them and that's why they're sick. And I only find in my work over the past, you know, decade, more than a decade with clients, trauma is a small piece of things. Trauma is a small piece of things. And I have also, as a granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, have seen how trauma often has no physical effect on people. So it's all how you process your trauma, how you view the trauma in terms of how it's affected your life and how you, I don't want to say let it affect your life because that's somewhat beyond our control, but how you frame it, how you perceive it, how you work with it as part of your life that makes a difference. And so when I talk to hospitals, I stay pretty mainstream with the stress connection, but I bring in the invitation to understand that stress is not just what we think it is. It's not, getting ready in the morning and the kids are late and, the dog the
Yeah.
dog the dog needs to go to the vet. It's not that. That's not the stuff that has a major impact. It's unresolved emotional and spiritual, you know, aspects of ourselves.
Yeah. And you've talked about the F word, and even in your book you talk about the F word,
Yes.
fear.
Yeah. The
Can you
biggest, the
yeah, can
biggest.
you say more about that? Because I think another question I want to ask you, and I'll come back to this, is what you're seeing with your clients and with people who are in your membership. So I do want to talk about that at some point, but I really, really want to hone in on fear because I think this
Yeah.
is this is a critical stress point for people.
Yeah. I think the biggest stress point for people is fear, and I think it comes down to the core fear of being who we really are.
Mm,
And I think everything else comes from that. Every other fear, every other stress essentially comes from that core fear of being who we really are. And in that, we hold ourselves back. We dim our own light. We don't take brave, bold moves like we should to step into the life that we want to be living. And that is in direct opposition to what we came here to do. And so
mhm,
when we are living in direct opposition to what we came here to do, the body hurts. The body does not function as it should because the body and the spirit are intertwined. And when the spirit is unhappy, when the spirit is being held back, there is no other available option for the body than to then also not be living in full potential or in its greatest state of well-being. And so that's really the experience that I had and what I see And all of my clients and all of my students, if you ask any one of them, are you afraid to be yourself in some way? There isn't one of them that would say no. And
Yeah.
that's what has to be worked with. That's what has to be changed. And it's cliche, but the feel the fear and do it anyway is a very real thing. Fear is natural. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to be mad about. It's not something to be frustrated with. It is something to essentially move forward with, do it anyway, feel it anyway, change anyway, believe in yourself anyway. Like every major breakthrough I've ever had in my life, whether it's been career or health or relationships, has come, along with a wave of fear that I didn't let stop me.
Hmm. Oh man, that's so powerful. I think about that in my own life. I when I worked in corporate and started making art and started sort of, telling people about what was happening with me spiritually and what I was seeing and how it was impacting me and all of that, like absolutely there was fear attached to that, 100%. And a friend of mine said, I think it's Ian Van Zant who says like if you don't have a little pee running down your leg when you're doing things in your life, then you're not doing
Yeah.
it right. Like you said,
Yeah.
feel the fear and do it anyway. Because
And you
that,
have to. You have
yeah.
to. I feel like it's a direct violation of your spirit to not. Like, it's a direct violation of your spirit to not live, to not at least attempt to live to your fullest potential in the greatest life that you can achieve. And there are so many ways that we can't live 1,000% ourselves, right? Like some of us have to be in jobs that we don't want to be because of socioeconomic factors of like there's so many things, right? But I always say to
Hmm.
people, just do the best you can. That is your job. It is not your job to control every single thing. And sometimes, maybe, yes, you'll have to be in a job you don't love for a while. But if you are not taking the steps to even see if something can be different for you, that's the violation of the spirit. It's not, I never want people to feel like sometimes clients come to me and say, I want to be my true self. I refuse to go to Thanksgiving this year and everybody's going to be mad at me, but I just don't want. And I sometimes say, like, sometimes you have to do, I mean, not that everybody has to go to Thanksgiving if it feels detrimental to them, but like that's taking it too far. Like, we don't, like, sometimes you're going to have to do some things you don't want to do, and that is fine. But if in
Yeah.
all the ways that you can, and all the big ways you have control of and that you can, you are living in alignment with who you know you should be. You have the partner that treats you well and that you have, a great relationship with. You're pursuing either your passion or career that you love. You're at least, at the very least, exploring what that would look like, even if you're not doing it yet. You're deciding that, even though you're a people pleaser, you're gonna have to sometimes be not be liked, and you're gonna do what you want anyway. You're gonna have to again make that decision to eat well, to do what you need to do to be healthy. Those are the things that you have to do to the best of your ability, even if you can't do them perfectly.
Hmm. I love that. That's so true. I think again, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Like you have to make the choice. And it all really comes down to, are you choosing what serves you, or are you choosing what is going to be healing to you or edifying to you versus doing what you think other people want you to do or be or show up out of fear or out of
Yeah,
worry.
or doing what's easiest. Like, here's my tough
Yeah.
love talk, but sometimes we blame it on other people and it's very convenient too, right?
So true. So, so true. When really we
Yeah.
are the only ones who are going to get ourselves up out of bed and get moving for the day. Um,
Exactly. And again, it comes back to this thing I always say, which is like, no one care, like no one cares. Like, there's a really funny meme that's like, dance like no one is watching because they're all on their cell phones worried about their own stuff. And it's so true. It's like, so many times in my life, it's like you thought you build things up so much and then the other person just doesn't care. They just aren't as upset as you think, or they are and they get over it and everybody survives anyway. So it's like we build all this stuff up in our heads.
we really do. I think that's so true. Just recently, one of my mentors said to me, Heather, just make the post. Just post it, don't worry about it. And I was like, I don't know. What if somebody says something? What if they have something? And she goes, nobody's watching what you're doing. You're fine. Relax. Like
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
cares as much as you really think that they do. But we sort of hold ourselves captive to these ideas. And so, um, I want to go into your the techniques that you share in your book and in your membership. I think it's identify, release, and move on. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's sort of my motto is just to
Okay.
find what's going on, find the stuff that's stuck, release it, and move on with our lives. That's the other thing is so many people, end up in this like sort of healing hole where they become like obsessed with healing, which listen, I've been there, so no judgment. But the idea is to use the techniques and let go of things and move through them and get to the other side and not make healing our lifestyle, right? And
Hmm.
so that's sort of where that original sort of motto for my work came in.
I love that. So for somebody who's listening right now, if they're feeling overwhelmed and they're like, I'm not really even sure where to start, how would you suggest that they move into that like figuring out place? Like what is it? What is it that's keeping me feeling this way right now? How do we start?
Yeah, so one of the things I always say is like, what have you been lying to yourself about?
Oh.
And that will usually people, whether they're willing to admit it or not, they'll usually know what that is. And that's the place to start, not by changing that thing, but by dealing with the emotional kind of like fallout of that thing. So all of my techniques that help release stress, release fear, release stuck emotional baggage. So around that thing is usually where to start. Where have you been lying to yourself? What have you been lying
Mm.
to yourself about? And most
Oh my
people know what
gosh.
that is. I mean, people come to me and they've been like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And it's like, you always know what it is. And I think like people used to say that to me. Like I once had a doctor say to me, which I really did not take well to at the time, but I once had a doctor say to me, like, is everything going on okay at home, like with your relationship? And I immediately like snapped back and I was like, yes, yes, it's great. It's great. And it was a complete lie. Like I was not in a healthy relationship. And so it's like, instead of asking yourself, like, what could be wrong, if you try to go straight to the lie, if you try to go straight to the lie, that's usually where you find the truth, ironically.
Oh my gosh, that is like the quote of the episode. I think that is so true because and really I was talking to somebody about this the other day too. How many times throughout the day do we actually sort of quote lie? And we maybe are not even aware that it was a lie, but it's just enough of a lie that those lies sort of become cumulative. And then the next thing you know, you're like, I don't know if this is actually who I am anymore, or if I've just found myself in a series of white lies that have led me down the path of where I am
Yes.
right
Yes. And I
now.
always say, like, you can get away with lying to other people for a long time, like about who you are, about what you care about. But you can't get away with lying to yourself because your body is like the biggest truth teller. So your body will start to react after a certain amount of lying to yourself, which is the stress, right? The deeper stress we're talking about. You
Mhm.
put your body in a stress state by lying.
Wow, that's really, really powerful. Okay, so that's the first step is to look at what have you been lying to yourself about? And that's sort of where you can start to identify what's the area. And then you can move through the process of actually working on releasing it and being able to get it out of your body or to
Yeah.
figure out. Yeah. Can you say more
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, sure. So, like, once you use and I have various techniques, as you know, but once
Hmm.
you learn, they're really simple, but once you learn and apply the techniques, what you're doing is you're trying to shift your energy, your beliefs, your feelings, your thoughts, your fear enough to actually take whatever action steps you need to make a change. So, I've sort of started adding this piece to my work or being more verbal about it because people will say, well, I've been tapping on, I've been doing the tapping on it, or I've been doing the sweep. That's another one of my techniques. I've been reading the script. And it's like the techniques are only to help you release enough emotional baggage so that you can do the thing you actually need to do. The techniques
Mm.
enough will not change your life. They'll change how you think, they'll change how you feel, and they'll make you you know they'll help you tap into your courage and trust your intuition. They'll do all these things because once you release emotional baggage, you're left with a more confident, balanced, healthy version of yourself, and that version of yourself is primed for change. That person that you're left with after you've cleared the emotional baggage is the person who has the capacity to change, not the person who's stuck in fight, flight, or freeze because they're afraid of everything. They're afraid of what people will say. They're afraid of telling themselves the truth. But you still have to do the thing. You still have to make the change. You still have to speak up in the relationship. You still have to decide that you're going to do art anyway, make the post anyway. You still have to add the action item because that is what helps change our external world is the action
Right.
item. When we have changed internally from the energy work, from the truth, from all of the things we do on a spiritual or emotional level, we are better set to change our environment. And so it's sort of a two-part thing.
I love that because I think it goes back to this idea that you can't just expect this miracle healing just because you said some words and tapped in a certain place. You actually have to show up for yourself and take action in your life in order to actually move towards healing. It's not just going to
Yes.
magically happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I always say, like, I had a really good friend who told me this quote. I don't know if it's somebody's quote or it was just his beautiful motto, but the mind leads and the body follows. And it's
Hmm.
so true. Literally, your subconscious mind controls most of your functioning, most of your actions, most of everything. And so your mind, if you don't get that straight, your body will never fall in line. And so I think the mind leads and the body follows is a really great way to think about change is if you can start with your brain, if you can start with your mind, if you can start with your thoughts, if you can start with all of that, your body is has a better leader, and that's really
Hmm.
what we want.
I love that. I want to talk about you have an oracle deck, how to heal yourself. And what I love about these is that you teach us how to both release something that we no longer want to carry, but then install another thought. And so this it really makes me think if you're installing new thoughts for your mind, then your body's going to follow those more positive thoughts as well.
Exactly, it's reprogramming. Basically, all of my techniques, whether it's the Oracle card deck or any of my techniques in my books, is really letting go of what no longer serves and bringing in the energy, thoughts, beliefs, and feelings that you want that align with moving forward and healing.
I love it. I love it. Tell us about your membership. You have the Fearless Living Collective, and I'm just now like putting together the F word and fearless living. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So the Fearless Living Collective is a membership and community that I started last year or earlier this year. I put it together last year. You know how these things are, Heather, right? You
Uh-huh.
put them together in one lifetime and launch them in another. Um, but I put together after I actually had a health hiccup of my own after many, many years of being well. And it was unrelated to Lyme disease, but I was unwell for a few months and realized that the core of it, the cause of it was because I was slipping back into old fearful patterns. There were many things I wanted to do with my business to change, to evolve, to grow. And I was afraid to let go of some of the old things I had been doing for so many years in order to pursue these new things
Mm,
that were much, much, much more in alignment with not only how I'm living, but what I wanted to teach and what I wanted to share. And there was a period where I realized that the fear that I was falling into and allowing myself to live in was was the most major contributor to not feeling well.
mm,
And the Fearless Living Collective was the thing that I created to invite people to be more fearless with me, to fear less in whatever was going on in their life and do it anyway. And through that membership and creating it and creating this amazing community, we're all together committing to not lying to ourselves, to doing what we need to do, even in the face of fear, to move forward toward, health and vitality or the dreams or whatever we want in our lives. We're doing the work, we're doing the energy work, we're doing the accountability to actually keep moving forward in mind, body, and spirit, to hold our feet to the fire. And so it's been really cathartic for me because it's keeping me on path, and
mhm.
it was also born from a time where I was like, this is so important, this fearless living, this being able to just fearlessly or with less fear, step into who you know you should be, because it's time. It's freaking time. If you've been sick, if you've been depressed, if you've been anxious, if you've been struggling and you're not doing the things you need to do, whether it's mind, body, or spirit, I wanted to create a space where it was easier to do those things, because
Mm-hmm.
again, it's that violation of spirit and your body is not going to like it. And so I really wanted to create that space where people could commit to it and do it for themselves.
I love that. And I think too, more than ever, this idea of community is so important because so many people are feeling isolated and alone and like they don't have people. And so to be able to bring together this community of people who are all committed to doing this work together, that in and of itself is powerful and
It
healing too.
is. It is. And there's that, there's that group intention, that collective energy that really, really makes a difference. And so not only is everybody, encouraging each other and sharing and cheering each other on, but just the energy of being involved, even if don't show up to the live events or need to watch the recording, or just the fact that you've committed and you're part of this energy makes such a big difference.
Hmm. What are you seeing out there now with your clients and even in the community? What are the things that people are really dealing with?
A lot of it is just what I always see, which is the physical stuff, which is
Okay.
the fatigue, the achiness, the physical diagnoses, which become such a big deal,
Hmm.
and really start to take over your whole life. And I think it's that is for a greater purpose than just your body malfunctioning. It's your body really, really, really trying to get your attention. And there's nothing that stops us in our tracks like a body that isn't working, right? Like we want it
Yeah.
to. And so I think that is, it's what I've always seen. It's what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing anything different than I was, in 2012 when I first started my full-time practice.
Hmm.
It's just people's bodies are talking, trying to get their attention. And if you don't answer the call of your body, it will just keep going on. I mean,
Right.
that's the
Hmm.
simple, I'm oversimplifying it, but essentially that's what it is your body's talking to you. And if you don't respond and make the changes internally or externally that you need to. And again, you don't have to be perfect. There are still some things I do that I don't like to do because I have to do them and I'm an adult. No big deal. That doesn't take me down. I
Right.
don't want anybody to think that that's what I'm saying. But it's the living in alignment with who you are or who you want to be or who or the life that you want to have to the best of your ability. And that is what the calling is when the body is speaking.
Hmm. I love that. Listening to you, I think we are wired for wellness. We're meant to be well.
Yes.
We're meant to be healthy. We're meant to have bodies that work and to sleep well. And so when our bodies start to whisper, we have to listen, or they'll start screaming. And so
Yeah.
I'm so happy to know you and to know your techniques for healing, and so happy that you do this work because it's, I think, now more than ever, so necessary for so many of
Thank
us.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for showing up and being yourself in its fullest expression and being able to offer your wisdom to everybody. So tell us where people can find you online and work with you.
Yeah. So everybody can find me on my website, which is Amy B like boy, and then my last name is Scher, SCHER.com. The Fearless Living Collective membership and community is at fearlesslivingcollective.com, but that can also be found through my website. And also for anybody who's just starting and wants to get a better feel for me, I have tons of free videos and guided sessions on YouTube. So that's always a good place just to kind of dip your toes into.
Awesome. And I can attest. I have attended your workshop, and I had a huge heart opening experience afterwards. I'll have to tell the listeners about it in the podcast episode when I edit the bio, because your work really opened up my heart, helped me expand. I finished this painting in like record time.
I
Um,
love it.
and it was so powerful, and I'm really thankful to you and to your work and everything that you offer. So thank you so much for coming on the show and for letting me speak to you and all the things. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening today. I loved this conversation with Amy so much. And I can't wait for you to check out her work and her books. You can find more about Amy over at amybscher.com or follow her on Instagram, Amy B Scher. So as we wrap up for today, I just want you to check in with yourself for just a moment and ask yourself what stood out or what stayed after you listened. If something clicked or stirred or made you realize there's more beneath the surface asking to be seen, my friends, that is not an accident. So if you feel curious or have a quiet sense of yes, I want you to continue the conversation with me over on Instagram at HeatherEckArtist, DM me the word color, and we'll start with a free color reading, and I'll help you understand what your system is communicating to you and what support, if any, feels aligned. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining me today on Your Radiant Spirit. Every conversation here is an invitation to go beyond the surface, to listen to what your soul has been whispering, and to step into the life you've been longing for. If you're ready to go deeper, to work in a way that's personal, creative, and profoundly transformative, you'll find ways to connect with me in the show notes. Whether it's through art, a guided session, or a fully immersive journey, you'll discover a space where your truth is seen and your next chapter begins. If this episode spoke to you, it would mean the world if you shared it with a friend, left a review, or subscribed so more people can discover the conversations we have here. Until next time, my friend, keep noticing the colors, the moments, and the nudges. They're all leading you home. And for now, take a breath, hold on to what resonated, and carry it with you into the rest of your day. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.